Hey guys, welcome to my video. I am your host, the J-Man, and today I'm here to bring you another hard-hitting, powerful comic book review. And today's comic book, well, trade paperback for that matter, is Superman Doomsday. Superman Doomsday. Okay, now, this is the immediate follow-up to Superman The Return. So, if you're following my reviews, the first review I did was Death of Superman, the story from December 92, carry over into early 93, followed by the very, well, I shouldn't say lengthy, it's actually the shortest of the four books, but World Without a Superman, which was kind of the in-between book. And then you have the third book was Return of Superman, which was extremely long, even longer than Death of Superman, but not quite as long as this. This might be a little bit longer. But anyway, Reign of Superman, which was basically the Return of Superman, felt longer because it kind of dragged out. This is a collection of several different stories, all regarding Doomsday. Most in part written by Dan Jurgens, some that were even penciled by him. Also, we have writers, let's see here. Well, I'll start off by saying it's 5 stories. And the first one is Superman Doomsday Hunter Prey. Okay, this was written by Dan Jurgens, and artwork was done by Brett Breeding in 1994. So, pretty soon after the Return of Superman, people were still asking about the origin of the backstory of Doomsday. You know, who is he, where did he come from, why did he want to kill Superman, etc., etc. So this is the story that describes in detail all of that. And not just an origin story, it also is a rematch, if you will, between Superman and Doomsday. On the back of the book it says, Doomsday killed Superman, now the Man of Steel wants payback. That's not quite accurate. It's not that Superman so much wants revenge, it's just that he happens to encounter Doomsday a second time, and this time he learns about Doomsday's origin. He had been having nightmares of Doomsday, and you know, the mystery of Doomsday's origin was lingering in Superman's head. So thankfully that was revealed in a very well-written story, I might add. I really enjoyed the second encounter between Superman and Doomsday. This has fantastic artwork. Talking about Superman Doomsday Hunter Prey, also known as Round 2. Gorgeous artwork. Let me give you here's a one-page panel. Splash page, that's what I was trying to say. We get some really cool pictures of Superman as a boy, Clark Kent as a boy. And of course his mother there as a young Clark Kent, Martha Clark, or not Martha Clark, Martha Kent. Yeah, so, you know, as a boy he was talking about how he used to have fears. He used to be afraid of the basement, but his mother's love would motivate him to overcome his fear. And this story is about overcoming fears, because Doomsday is the ultimate fear of Superman. This story really helped reinforce the mythos of Doomsday, that he is the ultimate destructive being or instrument. He is the Doombringer, Apocalypse, Armageddon, all in one, the Grim Reaper, if you will. The backstory, where Doomsday came from, it's extremely, well, science-based. If you believe in survival of the fittest and evolution, that sort of thing, which is all theory, I might add, absolutely theory, not fact. But this really stretches that, and I'd say is an absolute extremism of that theory or belief. So Doomsday is like the ultimate form of evolution. Also, they tied in the character of Doomsday with Darkseid, which, because a lot of fans were comparing the two characters, and even felt like Doomsday or Darkseid was responsible for Doomsday, and that's not the case. But still, the story here, which Doomsday and Darkseid encounter each other, is tremendous. And if you ever wondered who was more powerful, Doomsday or Darkseid, you get the answer to that question very clearly here. Also, another villain makes his first return since the Death of Superman storyline, and it's the main villain of that story, which is the Cyborg. We learned in Return to Superman that the Cyborg was actually an old villain called Hank Henshaw, who became this sort of electronic consciousness, this mechanical or digital awareness that travels around and is able to possess machinery. So the Cyborg returns, and it's explained that he attached himself to Doomsday through a device, because he's able to possess mechanical devices. So when Doomsday when Doomsday wakes up, that also activates the Cyborg. So basically, Cyborg tries to take over Apocalypse, and Superman comes to stop him. In the meantime, we also get, before Superman travels to Earth, not to Earth, before he travels to Apocalypse to stop Doomsday, he has a brief sort of meeting with Wave Rider, and kind of asks for Wave Rider's help. And Wave Rider is really unsure about it. He's very down the middle. He's not sure what he wants to do. I mean, he wants to help Superman, but then again, he knows he shouldn't interfere in the flow of time. So he has that dilemma, but eventually he does help out Superman and explain the origin of Doomsday, and is a big part of the reason, or the, not the reason, but the actually, how should I say this, the way they're able to stop Doomsday, yeah. So, or defeat Doomsday rather. So, you also get an encounter with Superman and the, well, not the Justice League, but Maxima of the Justice League. Maxima was also part of the Death of Superman story, and she actually helped fight Doomsday. So that's pretty cool there. She's part of this story as well. So out of all these stories, you've got 5 stories here. Yeah, 5 stories. The last one's kind of short. But this one is probably the best. I'm going to say it's the best. I like the artwork the best. It's also the oldest, so that's surprising. But yeah, Doomsday, Superman, Doomsday, Hunter, Prey. Very good story. After that, the next time Doomsday appears is in Doomsday Year 1 Annual. I think that's 1999, if I'm not mistaken. And there you have, written by Kevin Cunningham. The Doomsday Year 1 Annual is broken down into 5 different stories. Communion, Showdown, Some Say in Fire, In Blackest Night, and Requiem. So, all those written by a different writer. Dan Jurgens wrote Showdown, which is a pretty, they're all really short, and they don't really go together that much. It's they're in chronological order, but they don't really play off of each other. It's separate stories. Just Doomsday traveling around the universe. All of that happened before he reached Earth. So it talks about, or explains in more detail about the encounters he had before he encountered Superman, before he came to Earth. Such as his conflict with the Green Lantern Corps, His showdown with Doomsday. That's the showdown with Doomsday, though, is anticlimactic. And then there's some say in Fire is a story about how he goes to this planet and there's like a race of humans. They're just basically humans, and they're feuding with each other, and he interrupts that whole thing and conquers their entire planet, and they desperately attempt to get rid of him. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the Doomsday Year 1 Annual. I didn't really care for the artwork in that very much. And then you have Superman Doomsday Wars, which is about how Brainiac takes over Doomsday's body. Because of the events of 0 Hour, it made it so that basically a group of villains were able to reclaim Doomsday's body from this temporary holding place. And at that point, Brainiac was able to transfer his mind into Doomsday's body, but it was only temporary. Brainiac rather, was basically dominating Doomsday's mind, and yeah, he only had a certain amount of time before Doomsday basically took over again. So he was planning to clone Doomsday's body and use also the DNA of a human infant. But that didn't turn out too well. He was not successful. Brainiac and Doomsday's body turned out to be less of a threat than Doomsday himself, because if you think about it, the whole thing about Doomsday is that he is this mindless, destructive force, and there's no reasoning with him. No matter what, he's just gonna push forward. And with Brainiac inside of Doomsday, now Brainiac, has his own motives, he has his own fears, he has his own desires. You can reason with Brainiac. You can determine Brainiac's motivation, his strategy, if you will. So yeah, Brainiac and Doomsday's body, not as effective as Doomsday and Doomsday's body. But they had really good artwork in it. I like that story. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. The artwork in Doomsday Wars was also done by Dan Jurgens. He wrote the story and he did the pencils. The coloring looks good, but some of the drawings, especially this one here, Superman, look at it for a minute. It's really messed up. The perspective is inaccurate. It's not possible. It's not. It's poor drawing. Because anyone who knows how perspective goes knows that this can't possibly be. It looks like he's got this tiny body with legs hanging off of it and no middle section. No thorax. It's just he did it wrong, to say the least. His lack of artistic skills were showing. Other than that, not bad on the artwork. That's the only major flaw I see. Still, the artwork in the other one, and the first one by Brett Breeding, much better. And then you have the whole story of Brainiac and Doomsday's body. Doomsday kicks the ass of the Justice League, and I have to wonder why Doomsday didn't at least try to take over one of their bodies. Yes, he had the plan to take over the clone of Doomsday, but as soon as that failed, he should have at least tried to take over Orion's body, or even Green Lantern. But no, he doesn't do that. He just captures the JLA and then leaves them there. And it's like, what's the point? Then you have the second story, which is a part of it. It's like a flashback to when Superman was Clark Kent living in Smallville, and his father went bankrupt because the cattle died and he was going to have to sell the farm. So it's constantly flashing back and forth between that and what's going on with Doomsday. So the story dragged out for a little too long. I didn't particularly like that story as much. It shows Brainiac's new body towards the end. Okay, so at the end of that one, basically Superman fights Doomsday on the moon. This is Doomsday and Doomsday's body, not Brainiac anymore. And Superman, with a little bit of help from the JLA, and even Aquaman who just sits there and basically helps Superman come up with a strategy, I guess. But while Doomsday is just killing the JLA, Superman comes and is able to trap Doomsday in a teleporter, and he's in this constant loop of teleportation. Okay, so many years later, 2001, we have the storyline where Lex Luthor becomes president, and Imperex is waging war on planet Earth. So Lex Luthor gives the executive order to recruit Doomsday to use Doomsday against Imperex, or Imperex's army. So he hires this guy called Manchester Black, who's able to psychologically motivate Doomsday to attack Imperex. So basically Superman and Doomsday team up there, and even though Superman says it's really awkward fighting alongside of Doomsday, they still manage to defeat the armies of Imperex, until near the end where major shocker here, Imperex is able to vaporize the entire body of Doomsday except for the skeleton. So yeah, with just an energy blast from his hand, Doomsday is just completely vaporized, with the exception of his skeleton, which is important. Superman as well, he gets blasted, but Superman fares much better. They explain that by saying, Superman would have been completely vaporized if he hadn't have been teleported at the last second by Doomsday. Not Doomsday, Darkseid. So Darkseid saves both of them, and we'll see in the very next story, which is just a little bit later on, after the war with Imperex, Lex Luthor is still president. He negotiated with Darkseid to basically own the body of, or not the body, but the skeleton of Doomsday. So Lex Luthor has the skeleton of Doomsday deep underneath the Pentagon in this story called Doomsday Rex, and he sent the Joker in to basically initiate the process of bringing Doomsday back to life. And this is a modified version of Doomsday. It's not the same because he's got like this stone jaw all the way around him, and bigger claws. His whole body is much bigger, but he doesn't have like the pointy shoulders coming out. But this is a much lesser version of Doomsday, in my opinion. Either that or Superman has been powered up, which is hard to believe. And you have Superman, a gorgeous splash page of Superman here. So yeah, it was Lex Luthor's plan to unleash Doomsday to kill Superman. Here's the new look of Doomsday with that that jaw piece I was talking about. Alright, so Superman fares much better this time. Lex Luthor traps them both inside of this like mechanical box and fumigates it with kryptonite gas, and it's killing both of them. Superman is extremely weak coming out of it. You can see right here he gets punched very hard by Doomsday. And then he has to basically have his heart restarted by this character called Black Lightning, I think. But yeah, that was Lex Luthor's plan, was to kill both of them off inside of that kryptonite box. But it didn't work, and subsequently the news on the television that Superman is fighting Doomsday at the White House gets to Jonathan Kent, who was delusional for some reason. Maybe he was having Alzheimer's, but he had been missing for a long time. He sees it on television, he realizes who he is, and he goes back home. But this is a really great battle between Superman and Doomsday. Lots of action, lots of violence. Doomsday actually breaks off a piece of his skeleton on Superman's body. Really cool moment there. But Superman just beats the tar out of him. As you can see at the end, he's completely successful here. So yes, Superman finally does get his revenge on Doomsday, and basically Lex Luthor gives this version of Doomsday back to Darkseid, and they say that they're on even terms now. And then Superman, Clark Kent, is reunited with his father at the end of the story. Really nice there. Great artwork in this piece. So there you have it. That concludes Superman Doomsday trade paperback. How do I rate it? As a Superman fan, as a Doomsday fan, pretty high. This was filled with lots of action, with the exception of some of the side stories that were short and having almost nothing to do with Superman. With the exception of those, it would be really good. But yeah, because those are so distracting, I have to give this a lesser value, a lesser grade. And you know, there's so much difference from story to story. It's such a distraction. Like the art style, the writing style, it's so distinctive in each story that this doesn't make one like solid book that transitions very well. There's introductions written by Roger Stern, which are nice, but still, you know, the transitions in the art style, they're just non-existent. So it's kind of weird that way. But if you like variety, this is great. Like I said, my favorite story was the first one, Superman Doomsday Hunter Prey, which I highly recommend you pick that up. Very important story. And if nothing else, also get Doomsday Rex. So there you have it. Later on, Doomsday would appear in more DC Comics. He's right now currently in a major storyline called Reign of Doomsday. So yeah, you can pick that up. That's happening right now. I have not read into that yet, but I am looking forward to it. Okay, so there you go. Superman Doomsday, my final score is, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching. See you next.